Have you ever felt truly invisible? As if your greatest strengths, your deepest passions, were simply unseen, dismissed by those who claimed to know you best? Imagine pouring your very soul into something, only to have it regarded as a frivolous diversion, a whimsical tangent from the real paths of life. This was the quiet, constant burden carried by Layla Farouk, a woman whose brilliance was eclipsed not by shadow but by expectation. From her earliest days in the sprawling, gleaming city of Dubai, Layla found her solace and her fire in the intricate dance of code, the limitless possibilities of the digital realm. While her older siblings were meticulously crafting futures in law and medicine, careers deemed respectable and secure, Layla was losing herself in the glow of a screen, her fingers flying across a keyboard, conjuring worlds that others couldn't yet fathom. Her parents, steeped in tradition and the conventional markers of success, saw her tech passion not as a burgeoning talent but as a peculiar hobby, a quirky deviation that needed to be outgrown. Layla, why not consider something stable? The world needs doctors, engineers, not applications. Her mother would often sigh, her words gentle but laced with an undeniable undercurrent of disappointment. Her father, a man of few words but profound expectations, would simply offer a tight-lipped smile that spoke volumes of his unspoken doubts. The constant comparisons were a dull ache, a persistent whisper that eroded at her self-esteem. Your brother, Omar, he's already secured a position at the top law firm, Layla. So many opportunities await him. Or, your sister, Sarah, her medical practice is thriving. She's helping so many people. Layla would nod, her gaze distant. Already back in the complex architecture of her digital dreams, a place where she felt seen, even if by no one else. The weight of these unspoken judgments pressed down on her, not just stifling her ambition but quietly chipping away at her mental well-being. She battled silently with anxiety, with the gnawing feeling that she was perpetually falling short, that her inherent worth was intrinsically tied to a path she could never truly embrace. The world outside her window glittered with ambition and achievement, but within her heart, a quiet, almost melancholic solitude began to settle. She was an architect of the unseen, weaving digital tapestries in a world that only valued the tangible, the easily quantifiable. This was her starting point, a landscape of quiet defiance against a backdrop of towering family expectations. She worked tirelessly, late into the nights, fueled by stale coffee and an unwavering belief in the power of her vision. The hum of her laptop was her lullaby, the glow of the screen, her only companion in a world that often felt cold and dismissive. Every line of code she wrote was a quiet rebellion, a defiant whisper against the loud pronouncements of her family. Her small room, cluttered with diagrams and energy drink cans, became her sanctuary, a fortress against the unspoken judgments that permeated the air whenever she stepped outside it. Her parents, busy with their own lives, and the celebrated achievements of her siblings, barely noticed her retreat. They saw a quiet, perhaps slightly melancholic daughter, not an inventor on the cusp of a revolution. They'd knock on her door, usually to ask if she'd eaten, or to remind her of a family gathering, never to ask about the intricate universe she was meticulously building bite by bite. Are you well, Habibti? Her mother would ask, her eyes scanning Layla's tired face, but never truly seeing the burning ambition beneath the surface. You spend too much time on that computer. It's not healthy. Layla would offer a tight, practiced smile, a silent acknowledgement that words wouldn't bridge the chasm of understanding between them. She longed for their approval, for a single word of encouragement, a flicker of belief in her unconventional path, but it never came. Instead, the comparisons continued, subtle yet devastating, like 1,000 tiny cuts. She felt like a phantom in her own home, present but utterly unacknowledged. Her true self obscured by the overwhelming shadows of her siblings' success stories. This persistent invisibility became both her burden and her shield. It forced her inwards, hardening her resolve, transforming every dismissive glance into fuel for her quiet fire. She learned to draw strength from solitude, to find validation not in external praise, but in the elegant efficiency of her algorithms, the seamless functionality of her interfaces. The world outside her window, with its soaring skyscrapers and bustling markets, seemed to mock her silent struggle, yet it also held the promise of a future where her work, her passion, might finally carve out a space of its own, independent of familial expectations. It was in this crucible of quiet desperation and defiant hope that the seed of her app began to take root. Layla observed the daily frustrations around her, the inefficiencies, the moments of disconnect that plagued modern life despite its technological advancements. She saw people struggling to navigate complex bureaucratic systems, feeling overwhelmed by information overload, yearning for simpler, more intuitive solutions. Her mind, a labyrinth of interconnected ideas, began to weave a vision, an application that would not just solve a problem, but simplify a fundamental aspect of daily living for millions. It was a concept so elegant, so universally applicable, that she knew it held immense potential. The first time she dared to speak of it, a nascent excitement bubbling in her chest, was over a hushed family dinner. "I'm working on something big," she began, her voice softer than usual, a tentative hope flickering in her eyes. "It's an app that could really change how people connect with essential services." Her brother, Omar, mid-sentence about a complex legal brief, barely paused. "Oh, another one of your projects, Layla," he chuckled, a sound devoid of malice but dripping with condescension. "Remember that online recipe book you tried to build? And the virtual pet game?" Her sister, Sarah, offered a polite but disinterested smile. "That's nice, dear, but perhaps you should consider focusing on something more tangible. A stable career, a future." Her mother patted her hand, a gesture meant to be comforting, but felt more like a dismissal. "We just want you to be happy, Layla, and secure. These things, they are often just hobbies for young people." The words, familiar and predictable, stung nonetheless. They were not malicious, not intended to wound, but they were the sharpest reminders of how little they understood, how completely they had boxed her in. The nascent hope shriveled, replaced by the familiar ache of disappointment. She retreated, not just from the dinner table, but deeper into her own world. The criticism, the veiled skepticism, became a reinforcing wall around her conviction. If they couldn't see it, she would build it until it was undeniable. The validation she craved would not come from their words, but from the undeniable success of her creation. She would build it not just for herself, but as a testament to the unseen dreams of all those who were dismissed, who were told their passions were merely hobbies. Their disbelief became her silent, potent fuel. The subsequent years were a blur of relentless dedication, a testament to the raw power of a dream nurtured in obscurity. Layla lived and breathed her app, sacrificing sleep, social connections, and any semblance of a conventional life. Her mornings blurred into nights, marked only by the shifting light outside her window and the dwindling supply of coffee. She faced countless technical challenges, moments of despair when a line of code refused to cooperate or an algorithm stubbornly failed to optimize. There were weeks when she barely left her room, emerging only for hurried meals, her eyes red-rimmed, her posture slumped with exhaustion. Friends from university, who had long since settled into stable careers and started families, occasionally called, but their conversations felt increasingly distant, their lives diverging sharply from her monastic pursuit. She politely declined invitations, offering vague excuses, unable to articulate the all-consuming nature of her solitary quest. Her mental health, already a fragile thing, was pushed to its limits. There were nights she would stare at the ceiling, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her task, plagued by doubt, the familiar voices of her family echoing in her mind. "It's just a hobby. It's not stable." But then, a flicker of an idea, a breakthrough in her code, would reignite the fire, pushing her forward with renewed vigor. She learned to be her own cheerleader, her own critic, her own relentless driver. The contrast between her tireless effort and the perceived ease of her siblings' established careers was a stark, almost ironic backdrop to her journey. They had followed well-trodden paths, benefiting from established systems and expectations. Layla was carving a new one, brick by digital brick, with nothing but her intellect and an unshakable belief in her vision. She was the quintessential hidden gem, polishing herself in the quiet solitude of her room, unseen by the very people who should have recognized her brilliance. Her existence outside her digital realm felt almost ethereal, her presence in her family home merely a shadow. No one knew the depth of her struggle, the extent of her sacrifice, or the colossal potential simmering beneath her quiet exterior. They continued to see her as the quiet, slightly eccentric daughter, forever tinkering with her computer things, utterly oblivious to the quiet revolution she was meticulously building within her four walls. This sustained period of obscurity was not just a phase, it was the crucible that forged her resilience, shaping her into an individual whose worth was not derived from external validation, but from the intrinsic power of her own creation. The app, born from her struggles and fueled by her unwavering determination, finally launched, a silent whisper into the vast digital ocean. For weeks, nothing. Then, a tiny ripple. A few downloads, a handful of positive reviews. Layla checked the analytics obsessively, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Had she poured years of her life into something that would simply disappear into the abyss of forgotten apps? Just as despair threatened to consume her, the ripple became a wave. A prominent tech blog, known for spotting innovative startups, featured her app. Then another. And another. User downloads surged. Testimonials poured in, heartfelt messages from people whose lives had been genuinely simplified by her creation. "This app changed everything for me," one user wrote. "Finally, something that actually works," another exclaimed. The recognition, at first a trickle, became a torrent within the tech community. Invitations to industry events, requests for interviews from niche tech podcasts, inquiries from venture capitalists. Her inbox, once quiet, now buzzed with activity. It was a strange, almost surreal experience. The world outside, the one that had dismissed her for so long, was finally starting to see the profound value of her work. Yet, within her own personal sphere, within the walls of her family home, she remained Layla, the quiet daughter, still battling her perceived inadequacies. She kept her progress quiet, partly out of habit, partly out of a deeply ingrained caution. She had been hurt too many times by their dismissiveness to risk another dose of skepticism. The joy of her burgeoning success was tempered by a lingering ache, the old wound of unacknowledged effort. It was a strange, almost ironic form of dramatic irony. The world was discovering its newest innovator, celebrating her ingenuity, while her own family remained utterly blind, lost in their preconceived notions of what success truly looked like. She often wondered, in the quiet moments between coding and answering emails, if they would ever truly see her, not just the app, but the person behind it, the one who had poured her heart and soul into every pixel, every line of code. The external validation was a balm, a comforting embrace after years of quiet struggle, but the deepest parts of her still yearned for the simple, unequivocal approval of the people who knew her name, yet failed to know her heart. This quiet defiance, this silent triumph, was a prelude to the seismic shift that was about to redefine not just her life, but her place in the world. The surge in downloads transformed into exponential growth, fueled by word of mouth and glowing press. Venture capitalists, once cautious, now clamored for a piece of the pie. The small seed Layla had planted in obscurity began to sprout into a mighty, undeniable tree. Investment rounds closed at dizzying figures, each valuation eclipsing the last. The buzz around her app, now a household name in tech circles, reached a fever pitch. Then came the phone call, the one that would forever etch itself into her memory. It was her lead investor, his voice barely containing his excitement. "Layla, congratulations. We've just closed the Series D. Our valuation just hit." $1 billion. The words hung in the air, a surreal, almost abstract concept. $1 billion. The quiet room, usually filled with the soft hum of her laptop, suddenly felt vast and silent. Layla simply gripped the phone, her knuckles white, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. It wasn't about the money, not truly. It was about the validation, the undeniable, irrefutable proof that her vision, her years of silent struggle and dismissed passion, had not only been worthwhile but profoundly impactful. It was the universe's thunderous affirmation of her worth. The news exploded across the global tech landscape, a story of an underdog founder who had quietly built a behemoth. But the ultimate symbol of this seismic shift wasn't a press release or a financial report. It was the email that landed in her inbox a few days later, a simple subject line: Forbes Middle East cover feature. Her hands trembled slightly as she clicked on the attachment. There she was. Layla Farouk. Her face, usually reserved and serious, softened by a faint, proud smile. The headline, bold and declarative, screamed her triumph. Layla Farouk, the billion-dollar visionary reshaping digital landscapes. The words blurred before her eyes. A lifetime of quiet resilience distilled into a single, powerful image. It was a monument to every late night, every dismissed dream, every silent battle with her own self-doubt. This was not just a magazine cover. It was an undeniable, tangible manifestation of her intrinsic worth, a public declaration that the invisible woman had not only been seen, but celebrated on the grandest stage. The world, her world, would never be the same. The Forbes Middle East cover story wasn't just an article, it was a watershed moment, a declaration to the world, and more importantly, to her family, that Layla Farouk was not just Layla, the quiet, unconventional daughter, but a force to be reckoned with. The image on the glossy page was striking. Layla, not in a power suit or a stiff pose, but in a simple, elegant abaya, her gaze direct and unwavering, a subtle blend of humility and quiet confidence. The accompanying headline, The Unseen Architect: How Layla Farouk Built a Billion-Dollar Empire from the Shadows, echoed the very essence of her journey. It wasn't just about the financial valuation, it was about the profound recognition of her vision, her intellect, and her unyielding spirit. For Layla, seeing her face on that cover was a complex emotional experience. There was an undeniable surge of triumph, a deep satisfaction that her years of quiet, often lonely, struggle had culminated in such an undeniable testament to her worth. But there was also a lingering exhaustion, a quiet ache that reminded her of the mental and emotional toll her journey had taken. The success, while sweet, didn't erase the memories of dismissal, the sting of being overlooked. It was a validation, yes, but also a poignant reminder of how desperately she had yearned for this recognition from those closest to her. This Forbes cover became the ultimate catalyst. It was a public, undeniable, and universally understood symbol of achievement. It transcended language barriers and cultural nuances. In the world her family understood, a Forbes cover was the epitome of success, the irrefutable proof of a life well lived, a career brilliantly executed. It was the only currency that could truly penetrate their well-established perceptions. This was no longer a hobby or a tangent. It was a quantifiable, undeniable triumph that would force them to confront their long-held biases. As she held the physical copy, her thumb tracing the contours of her own image, a quiet, almost serene determination settled over her. She knew exactly what she had to do. Not for revenge, not for gloating, but for closure. For a silent, powerful statement that needed no words. The simple act of sending the email would be more profound than any verbal confrontation, more eloquent than any lengthy explanation. It would be a quiet, unassailable truth, delivered with the dignity of someone who had nothing left to prove. With a calm resolve that belied the tremor in her heart, Layla opened her laptop, navigated to her email, and typed in the familiar address of her mother. The decision to send that email was not born of malice or a desire for gloating, but from a profound need for resolution, a quiet longing for the kind of understanding that had eluded her for so long. She didn't compose a long message, didn't write an explanation, didn't add a single word of accusation or triumph. She simply attached the link to the Forbes article, her fingers hovering over the send button for a long moment, a lifetime of unspoken words swirling in the silence of her room. Then, with a deep breath, she clicked. The email vanished into the digital ether, a small, unassuming act with monumental implications. Across the city, in her family's elegant villa, Layla's mother, Ada, was immersed in her usual routine. She was a woman of meticulous habits, her days filled with charity work, managing the household, and keeping abreast of her elder children's busy schedules. Her phone, usually a tool for coordinating family affairs, buzzed discreetly. She glanced at it, seeing Layla's name. A quick, almost automatic thought crossed her mind. Perhaps she's asking about dinner again, or some technical help with her tablet. She opened the email, her mind still preoccupied with her upcoming committee meeting. The subject line was blank. The body of the email contained only a single, hyperlinked image, the iconic Forbes logo. A flicker of curiosity, a slight frown, creased her brow. What is this? She clicked the link. The screen loaded, revealing the stark, bold headline, the prominent image. Her own daughter. Layla, on the cover of Forbes Middle East. $1 billion valuation. The words seemed to jump off the screen, assaulting her senses, rearranging her entire perception of reality in an instant. Her eyes widened, scanning the article, then snapping back to Layla's calm, confident face on the cover. A gasp escaped her lips, a small, choked sound of utter disbelief. The spoon she had been stirring her coffee with clattered against the ceramic mug. Her hands began to tremble. Her initial shock quickly gave way to a rush of complex emotions. Pride, yes, a sudden, overwhelming surge of it, hot and undeniable. But beneath it, a chilling wave of regret, an uncomfortable prickle of shame. How could she have been so blind, so dismissive, so completely, utterly wrong? She, who prided herself on being a perceptive mother, had failed to see the quiet genius thriving right under her roof. The image of Layla hunched over her laptop for endless hours. The vague excuses for her absence at family gatherings, the quiet, distant look in her eyes. It all flooded back, suddenly making terrible, heartbreaking sense. The juxtaposition was stark, almost cruel. Her ordered, predictable world, built on conventional successes, had just been upended by the quiet, unconventional path her youngest daughter had forged. A tear, unbidden, rolled down her cheek, a heavy drop carrying the weight of years of unspoken apologies. The phone in her hand felt impossibly heavy. She knew, with a certainty that shook her to her core, that nothing would ever be the same. The email, sent in silent defiance, had landed like a bomb, meticulously calibrated to shatter the walls of their long-held assumptions. The Forbes article spread like wildfire within the Farouk family. The initial reactions were a kaleidoscope of astonishment, disbelief, and a reluctant, dawning respect. Omar, the lawyer, received a forwarded link from a colleague. He stared at the screen, then scrolled back up to confirm the name. Layla? Our Layla? This must be some mistake. Sarah, the doctor, saw it on her hospital's digital news feed. She gasped, then immediately called her mother. Mama, have you seen this? It's impossible. The family WhatsApp group, usually buzzing with updates about Omar's latest court victory or Sarah's philanthropic initiatives, exploded with bewildered messages. But it was Aida, Layla's mother, who grappled most profoundly with the revelation. For hours after receiving the email, she sat in stunned silence, rereading the article, her mind replaying countless moments from Layla's life. The quiet determination, the moments of withdrawn sadness, the unwavering focus she had always dismissed as mere stubbornness. It was all there, laid bare in the words of the article, confirming a truth she had been too blind to see. Finally, her resolve solidified. She picked up her phone and called Layla. Habibti. Her voice was thick with emotion, a tremor she couldn't hide. I saw the article. Layla listened, her own heart pounding a silent rhythm. She didn't gloat, didn't utter a single "I told you so." She simply waited, giving her mother the space to speak her truth. Layla, Ada continued, her voice breaking. I am so incredibly proud of you. More proud than you can imagine. There was a pause, a moment pregnant with unspoken apologies. But I am so sorry. For not seeing, for not understanding, for dismissing your dreams, your passion. We were so focused on what we thought was best, on what was respectable, that we failed to see the true brilliance right in front of us. We should have listened, we should have supported you. We were wrong. It was everything Layla had ever longed to hear. The words, raw and earnest, were a balm to old wounds. She felt a lightness she hadn't known was possible. Mama? Layla's voice was soft, laced with a gentle understanding. It's okay, I always knew what I was building. And now, you know too. This was the catalyst's transformation, the perceptive authority figure finally shedding her ignorance, accepting the truth revealed by the protagonist's quiet triumph. The conversation continued for a long time, not about the money or the fame, but about Layla's journey, her struggles, her moments of doubt, and her unwavering belief. The siblings, after their initial shock, also reached out, their previous condescension replaced by genuine awe and newfound respect. The family dynamic had irrevocably shifted. It was a powerful testament to the idea that true worth is not dictated by external expectations, but by the relentless pursuit of one's own truth. Layla Farouk, the once invisible daughter, had finally been seen, not just by the world, but by the very people whose recognition she had silently craved for so long. The success of her app, her billion-dollar valuation, was not an end but a new beginning. Layla Farouk, once the overlooked anomaly, was now a celebrated visionary, her journey a powerful testament to the triumph of quiet perseverance. She didn't disappear into a life of opulent leisure. Instead, she used her newfound platform and resources to become a catalyst for change. She invested in burgeoning startups led by women and underrepresented minorities, creating the very opportunities she once yearned for. She became a vocal advocate for mental health awareness in the tech industry, openly sharing her own struggles, shattering stigmas, and ensuring that no other aspiring innovator would have to battle their inner demons in lonely silence. Her family, once her primary antagonists, transformed. Her mother, Aida, became her fiercest champion, sharing Layla's story with anyone who would listen, her eyes shining with a pride that finally resonated with true understanding. Omar and Sarah, once dismissive, now sought Layla's advice, their respect for her intellect absolute. Their family dinners, once fraught with unspoken judgments, now hummed with genuine conversation, a newfound appreciation for each other's unique strengths. Layla had proven that worth isn't found in conforming to preset notions of success, but in daring to forge your own path, in relentlessly pursuing your passion even when others cannot see its value. Her story became a modern fable, whispered in the corridors of tech hubs and shared in quiet homes, a reminder that the loudest successes often spring from the most profound silences. It spoke of courage, of resilience, and of the transformative power of finally being seen. So, what unseen talent do you harbor? What quiet dream have you allowed others to diminish, to relegate to the realm of just a hobby? Layla's journey reminds us that true genius often blossoms away from the spotlight, nourished by quiet conviction and unwavering faith. Don't wait for permission to shine. Don't let external definitions confine your internal universe. Embrace your unique path, nurture your hidden strengths, and build your own billion-dollar dream, whatever that may look like for you. Your worth is not defined by external validation, but by the unshakable truth of who you are and what you are meant to create. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded of their own immense, often unrecognized, potential. Comment below and tell us what hidden gem you're working on. Let Layla's journey inspire you to unveil your own extraordinary